Hello there, and welcome to Dream Myths. The air was a tapestry of warm silence, save for the gentle lapping of the Nile against the riverbanks. The apprentice sat upon the sun-warmed granite steps, the stone still radiating the day's heat. They meticulously rolled up the papyrus scroll, the ancient script a whisper on the brittle surface. The sun, a molten disk, dipped toward the horizon, transforming the river into a flowing expanse of liquid gold, a spectacle that never failed to stir the soul. For the apprentice scribe, these quiet, twilight hours by the water were sacrosancta, cherished time for solitary practice. They held their most prized possession, a perfect, luminous white feather pen, a gift from their mentor on the very first day of training. It rested in their hand with a delicate, balanced weight, a symbol of their calling. As the last rays of sunlight struck the river's surface, they seemed to ignite the hieroglyphs the apprentice had been studying. The connection to the Nile deepened. It was more than just a river. It was the lifeblood of Kemet, carrying both water and time, a voice familiar and grounding, cut through the quiet. A good evening to you, young scribe. It was Amenhat, the boat owner's son, his greeting a welcome break in the tranquility. Amonhat's smile was wide and genuine as he expertly secured his father's trading vessel to the dock. The apprentice and Amonhat had shared a bond since childhood, a silent understanding built over years. Amonhat's generosity was unwavering, always offering the apprentice the peaceful sanctuary of the vessel for their riding practice. "You are welcome aboard," Amonhat offered, "while we await the final deliveries from upriver. The river is yours." The apprentice nodded in gratitude, gathering their scrolls and inkpot. The boat, a sturdy, worn testament to countless journeys, rocked with a gentle, hypnotic sway as the apprentice stepped aboard. They found their usual spot amidst the carefully stacked cargo. Heavy rolls of linen, clay jars fragrant with honey, and bundles of dried herbs. The air on the boat was rich, a complex blend of sweet earthiness from the trade goods and the damp, fertile scent of the Nile. This olfactory signature grounded the apprentice, anchoring them in the present moment. From this vantage point, they surveyed the river, a highway of ancient commerce, bustling with the final boats of the day, heading toward their moorings, their silhouettes sharp against the deepening twilight. The apprentice's attention was drawn to a silent sentinel on a nearby reed bank, a white ibis, its plumage luminous in the fading light, stood in perfect stillness. The bird's presence was immediate and profound, arresting the apprentice's breath. In ancient Kemet, the ibis was revered as the earthly manifestation of Thoth, the divine scribe and keeper of wisdom. This particular ibis seemed to hold an unusual focus, its gaze directed toward the apprentice. Its feathers possessed an uncanny similarity to the precious pen resting in the apprentice's hand. A tremor of anticipation, a mixture of wonder and subtle apprehension coursed through the apprentice as the sacred bird maintained its intense watch. As the apprentice leaned forward, a warm gust of wind, sudden and purposeful, swept across the deck. The cherished white feathered pen, the symbol of their destiny, slipped from their grasp. It did not fall into the water, but rather danced upon the breeze, caught in a graceful aerial ballet. It drifted inexorably toward the western bank, a silent summons. In response, the ibis unfolded its wings with serene power and took flight, tracing the exact trajectory of the floating feather. The apprentice, heart pounding with a mixture of reverence and urgency, called out to Amenhat, "We must follow it, please." Amenhat, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by a look of understanding, smiled knowingly. Without a word, he began untying the boat, anticipating the apprentice's need. "My father's last delivery can wait," he murmured, his voice low. Only a fool would ignore the messenger of the god. The vessel eased away from the dock, the movement a gentle sway that belied the significance of their departure. They were embarking on a twilight quest, following a sacred bird and a treasured feather into the deepening shadows of ancient Egypt. The rhythmic splash of the oars against the water and the soft groan of the boat created a mesmerizing rhythm, a silent promise of the adventure unfolding. Amenhat skillfully guided the boat into the Nile's gentle current. The vessel moved almost silently, following the white ibis that glided effortlessly ahead, the feathers suspended just beneath its path like a beacon. The magnificent bird occasionally checked its flight, a brief hesitation suggesting it was deliberately ensuring the boat maintained its course. The last vestiges of sunlight caught the ibis's wings, rendering them radiant, akin to the finest polished limestone. Amenhat, his voice hushed in the reverence of the evening, began to recount a tale from his grandfather. According to the ancient wisdom passed down, the ibis were not merely birds, but the spirits of scribes from millennia past, eternally watching over their students. Amenhat smiled, a fond acknowledgement of his grandfather's penchant for weaving narratives a man who had mastered the art of storytelling during his 60 years as a boatmaster. They were enveloped by the familiar sounds of the river, the rhythmic rhythm of life along the banks surrounded them as they drifted downstream. The air carried the soft laughter of women at the water's edge, their voices echoing as they filled their clay jars. The apprentice recognized them from the bustling market, where they often assisted their mentor in recording grain transactions. Further along, the quiet whistles of two young boys herding their goats mixed with the gentle splash of water against the boat's hull. A Mon hat pointed toward a fishing vessel, the nets being drawn in. "Old Cons has had a profitable catch tonight," he remarked. The fishermen moved in a practiced choreography, their actions efficient and peaceful, their nets heavy with a shimmering harvest of silver fish. The apprentice mentally cataloged the scene, recalling the countless times they had recorded receipts for these very catches during their training sessions, meticulously noting the weight and species of each fish. Even here on the river, the silent discipline of the scribe was paramount. The boat glided past a dense cluster of papyrus reeds, their graceful stalks swaying in the evening air. The apprentice observed them with newfound clarity, recalling the rigorous lessons of early training. They remembered mastering the hieroglyph for papyrus, the mentor's careful explanation that the symbol itself mirrored the delicate structure of these very plants. The mentor's words echoed in their mind that a scribe's every inscription is inextricably linked to the natural world. This abstract concept now resonated with profound reality as the apprentice watched the reeds bend and straighten in the breeze. A powerful realization crystallized within them. The written word was not merely a record, but an elegant reflection of the world's inherent complexity and divine beauty. A deep sense of purpose filled the apprentice. The white feather, still floating ahead, caught an unexpected gust of wind, rising briefly before settling back into its determined trajectory. The ibis, as if sensing a moment of clarity, wheeled overhead in a magnificent arc. It pointed toward the western bank, where the colossal forms of the Great Pyramids emerged against the darkening canvas of the sky, their surfaces absorbing the last light of day and glowing with an internal radiance. Amon had, his voice swelling with quiet pride, pointed toward the monuments. He shared that his elder brother Nak was employed there, meticulously setting the outer casing stones. Nak, he explained, often spoke of the task as fitting stars into the sky, a metaphor that underscored the exacting perfection required of each block, Amon had suggested they might stop by, mentioning that Nock would likely be concluding his shift soon. Other vessels, heavy with the day's labor, passed them on the Nile, heading toward home. The apprentice recognized many faces merchants and artisans whose livelihoods had been meticulously documented in their practice scrolls. Greetings were exchanged in the fading light. An old pearl dealer called out, "Young scribe, following Thoth's bird, are we?" The query was gentle, tinged with recognition and amusement. The air grew perceptibly cooler as dusk deepened, carrying with it the fragrant smoke of cooking fires from the villages lining the bank. Women began to light oil lamps, their small, flickering flames appearing like scattered earthbound stars against the darkening shore. A shepherd's reed flute played a haunting, ancient melody, its notes drifting across the water like scattered flower petals. The apprentice trailed a hand in the cool embrace of the river, pondering the countless stories this ancient water had borne witness to, and the countless scribes who had observed the sun setting from a boat just like this one. This reflection fostered a profound sense of connection, a peaceful communion with the generations who had preceded them. The ibis, their celestial guide, banked gracefully toward the western shore, where torches were now being kindled at the base of the pyramids. The feather, still floating in the ibis's wake, followed suit. Amonhat began to pivot the boat, his voice low and reverent. "The feather leads us to the house of eternity," he noted, using the traditional phrase for the colossal tombs. The boat glided onward through the deepening darkness toward the eternal silence of the pyramids. The journey felt increasingly surreal, a transition from the mundane into the mythical. The apprentice felt a powerful surge of purpose, understanding that this was far more than a simple pursuit. It was a passage guided by forces as ancient as the sands of Egypt itself. The western horizon was a stunning gradient of deep oranges and purples as Amonhat navigated the boat toward the bustling workers' harbor. Here, smaller docks were dedicated to receiving the vast limestone blocks brought downstream. The ibis completed a final, graceful circle overhead, the white feather dancing in its wake, before settling onto the torch-lit path leading toward the immense construction site. Amonhat pointed out his brother Nock, a towering figure among the workers, carrying a measure rope. Nock stood with a cluster of laborers at the harbor's edge, his linen kilt dusted with the fine white powder of limestone, the silent mark of a seasoned builder of the Great Pyramid. The apprentice gazed upward at the monumental structure. While they had transcribed countless texts detailing the pyramid's construction, witnessing its scale in the flesh, bathed in the last light of the day, was an entirely different experience. It was nothing short of breathtaking. The smooth, meticulously polished casing stones at the base of the pyramid caught the dying sunlight, glowing like fragments of a fallen sky. Knock approached and helped secure the boat, mentioning that the night crew was preparing to commence their shift. He remarked on the stunning evening for a visit. He had questioned whether the apprentice should be attending their evening lessons. The apprentice quickly explained the unusual events of the feather and the ibis as a continuous stream of workers passed by, sharing quiet conversations about the day's progress and the efficiency of their labor. Some workers offered respectful nods when they noticed the apprentice's scroll case. Scribes commanded high regard, a testament to the fact that every single stone utilized in the construction had to be perfectly documented and accounted for. The ibis, exhibiting infinite patience, had landed near the base of the workers' ascent path. The white feather rested nearby on a strand of dry grass, moving softly in the breeze but remaining stationary, a deliberate anchor. The sacred bird observed the apprentice, its eyes reflecting the first emerging stars of the evening. Nak gestured toward the pyramid's summit, which seemed to pierce the firmament. He explained that the night shift would continue their labor under the starlight, ensuring the stones were aligned with the constellations, the eternal ones above. Nak smiled at the apprentice's obvious fascination, then offered to show them the construction up close. A distinct serenity settled over the building site as night descended. The air, cool and dry, carried the subtle fragrance of desert herbs mingled with the sharp scent of limestone dust. Distant sounds of cooking fires being kindled drifted from the nearby workers' village, accompanied by the far-off calls of children summoned home for their evening meals. A crew of torchbearers moved along the base of the pyramid, illuminating the paths where the night workers would persist in their eternal task of building for the king. The sight of the pyramid under the emerging stars filled the apprentice with a profound sense of awia, perfect synthesis of human endeavor and celestial guidance. The apprentice recalled their mentor's imperative. A true scribe must observe everything, for how can we record what we haven't truly seen? The apprentice felt a sense of quiet assurance that their mentor would understand this unexpected detour on such a uniquely significant evening. The ibis took flight once more, ascending slowly up the torchlit path. The white feather, a constant companion, was lifted by the same soft breeze. Amun-Hat meticulously secured the boat, and they disembarked onto the wooden planks of the harbor, following Nak up the well-worn ascending track. As they climbed, workers concluding their day's shift passed by, Their faces, though marked by fatigue, were peaceful, a reflection of honest toil. They carried the tools of their trade, gleaming copper chisels, precise measuring ropes, and heavy smoothing stone. They exchanged familiar greetings with knock, a quiet acknowledgement of the profound bond shared by those who build side by side. Knock paused to exchange a few words with a passing stone setter, inquiring about his wife, who had traded honey cakes for medicine for their daughter. These small, human details served to temper the monumental scale of the pyramid's construction, reminding the apprentice of the lives interwoven with this eternal project. The ibis landed again, settling atop a large limestone block, the white feather coming to rest at its feet. It glowed with a soft luminescence in the deepening dusk, against the darkening sky. The vast, inclined ramps which wrapped around the pyramid's sides became visible. Teams of night workers were gathering, their quiet conversations mixing with the soft crackle of the torches as they checked ropes and rollers, preparing for the night's labor. They arrived at the scribe station, a simple yet vital wooden shelter. This was the nerve center, where apprentices meticulously recorded every stone, every worker's contribution, measurements, and alignments. Rolls of untouched papyrus were stacked neatly, awaiting the meticulous records of the coming day. The apprentice was filled with a powerful desire to one day work here, documenting the very building of eternity. Otep, one of the revered master scribes, looked up from his work and greeted the apprentice with a knowing glance. He was finalizing his day's records with the swift, precise movements of a seasoned reed pen. Otep nodded toward the ibis, acknowledging the apprentice was following God's messenger. He offered a quiet piece of wisdom. Sometimes the most vital lessons present themselves long after the formal teachings have concluded. As they ascended higher, the air grew increasingly cool, carrying the comforting aroma of dinner fires from the nearby workers' village. The familiar sounds of the evening settling in surrounded them, the distant calls of women summoning children, the clatter of clay pots, and the mournful echo of a lone flute. Knock halted at a wide point in the pathway to allow a team of night workers, their torches blazing, to pass. The ibis, as if in synchronization, took flight again, moving toward the base of the pyramid, the feather trailing faithfully. Knock observed that the night crew was commencing their labor, their hands guided by the eternal stars as they meticulously fit stone to stone. The path ahead glowed with the warm light of the torches, and the sacred bird seemed to beckon them forward into the deepening night, towards mysteries both ancient and profound. The apprentice followed Knock, weaving between the massive limestone blocks that seemed to possess a silent, living presence in the darkness, illuminated only by the dancing shadows cast by the torchlight. The white feather, a luminous guide, continued to drift ahead, drawing them deeper into the heart of the construction site, always followed by the ibis. Knack navigated them around the heavy wooden rollers used to transport the facing stones during the night shift. The ibis came to rest on a colossal wooden lever, allowing the apprentice a close view of the intricate network of ropes and counterweights employed to lift the immense stones. The feather settled softly near the bird's feet. A figure emerged from the shadows. Senmut, the master builder. He greeted the apprentice and extended an invitation to witness the setting of what he called a perfect stone. The apprentice followed Senmut to a massive limestone block, suspended securely within an intricate cradle of ropes. Workers moved around the stone with an almost ethereal grace, a testament to their precise coordination. They meticulously checked knots and alignments. One artisan ran his hands over the stone's surface, seeking out any minute imperfection. Senmut pointed to the copper guide pins, explaining that these simple tools allowed them to position the stone with accuracy within the breadth of a hair. Senmut spoke with quiet pride, emphasizing that while the celestial spheres guided their work, the copper pins ensured their earthly precision. The apprentice was deeply affected by the builder's meticulous dedication, a realization dawning that their careful, deliberate artistry was as profound and exact as any scribe's work.